Today we're basically going to combine skills that we learned last week with the factoring skills that we've been practicing. So the first problems on your notes are review. Last week I gave you problems like number 1. Do you remember the zero product property? Do you remember that terminology? The zero product property, oops, I misspelled it. The zero product property says that if you're multiplying things together and you're getting 0 as an answer, you can set each of those things equal to 0 and solve each equation for 0. So in number 1, you have x plus 3 times 2x minus 3 equals 0. Because you're multiplying these two things together and getting an answer of 0, that means either x plus 3 has to equal 0, or 2x minus 3 has to equal 0. And you would solve both of those equations. So the first equation, we would subtract 3 on both sides to get x equals negative 3. And the 2x minus 3 equation, we would add 3 on both sides to get 2x equals 3, and then we would divide by 2 to get x equals 3 halves. So our two solutions would be negative 3 and 3 halves. Do you remember that from like a week and a half ago? Okay. Then what we've been doing recently is factoring. So x squared plus 8x minus 48. The last number is always the result of multiplication. The middle number is the result of addition. So to factor this, we start by doing blank times blank equals negative 48. Blank plus blank equals 8. And this is like a puzzle, and we have to figure out what numbers go in those blanks. If you're struggling with figuring out those numbers, list ways that you can multiply to get 48. List the factors of 48. So 48 divided by 1 is 48. 48 divided by 2 is 24. 48 divided by 3, I think it's 16. 48 divided by 4 is 12. 48 divided by 5, we get a decimal, so that doesn't work. 48 divided by 6 is 8. 48 divided by 7, we get a decimal, so that one's out. And then 48 divided by 8 is 6. That one's already up there, so now we know that our list is complete. Once you have these pairs of numbers listed here, now the trick is figuring out how to get 8. So because we're multiplying to get negative 48, that means one of the numbers has to be negative. So try doing like 16 minus 3. That's 13. That doesn't work. What about 12 minus 4? 12 minus 4 is 8. So 12 times negative 4 is negative 48. 12 plus negative 4 is negative 8. So the factored form is x plus 12, x minus 4. Today what we're going to do is combine those two skills. So it's going to be an equation equals 0, but the left side is going to look like number 2. It's going to look like a problem that we have to factor. So we're going to factor the left side of the equation and then solve the equation just like we did in number 1. So we're just taking two skills that we've learned that we're fairly good at and smushing them together. So let's look at example 3, solve the equation by factoring. The first thing that you're going to do is check to make sure that your equation is in standard form. Do you remember what standard form is? Standard form is when your largest exponent is first, and then your next largest exponent, and so on until just the number. So you want it to be x squared, and then your x term, and then your number, and you want it to be equals 0. So we're going to check to see, is the equation in standard form equaling 0? Is this one? Yes. Step 2, we are going to factor using the blanks just like we did yesterday. So for right now, we're going to kind of ignore that the equals 0 is there and just think about we're multiplying two numbers to get negative 24. Those same two numbers have to add up to negative 5. So same as we've been doing, write down all of the factors of 24. 24 divided by 1 is 24. 24 divided by 2, someone with the calculator, what's 24 divided by 2? 12. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 24 divided by 4. 24 divided by 5 is a decimal. 24 divided by 6 is 4, and that's already listed there, so that's our list of numbers. Now we have to try to get negative 5. All right, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of us are not very comfortable with negative numbers because we're just not as familiar with negative numbers as we are with positive numbers. You've been working with positive numbers a whole lot longer in your life than you've been working with negative numbers. So if the negative 5 is a little bit daunting to you, think about positive 5. How could you subtract those numbers to get positive 5? Can you do 2 and 12 to get 5? 8 minus 3 is 5. But we don't actually want positive 5, we want negative 5. If you can get the positive version, just reverse it. So if 8 minus 3 is positive 5, reverse it. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. So if the negative numbers kind of throw you for a loop, think about positive and then just reverse it. So 3 and negative 8. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. So the factored form is x plus 3, x minus 8. And then the part that's new for us right now is that this equation is equals 0. Your next step is to set up two equations and solve. So our first set of parentheses is x plus 3. Put x plus 3 equals 0 and solve. Our other set of parentheses is x minus 8. Put that equal to 0 and solve. What would we do in the first equation to get our answer? How would we solve it? That's right, we'd subtract 3 on both sides. So x equals negative 3. How would we solve the second equation? We would add 8 to both sides and get x equals 8. So our two solutions are x equals negative 3 and x equals 8. First of all, check, is it in standard form? Yes. So we don't need to do anything for step 1. Step 2, we need to factor. I have to multiply to get what number? 3. We have to add up to 4. Now this one's kind of nice. There's only one way to multiply to get 3. 1 times 3. Is 1 plus 3 4? Why, yes it is. So our factored form is x plus 1, x plus 3. But the new part is after the factored form we write equal 0. Step 3, we need to solve. Our first equation is x plus 1 equals 0. Our second equation is x plus 3 equals 0. So what are our two final solutions? X equals negative 1 and x equals negative 3. You'd be subtracting 1 on both sides, subtracting 3 on both sides. You want your equations to be x squared plus something times x plus a number equals 0. Number 5 does not say equals 0. Is there a way, using actual math practices, to make that 10 go away on the right side of the equation? Subtract 10 from both sides. So this time for step 1, check to see if it's in standard form. It's not in standard form. So we are going to subtract 10 on both sides. On the right side, that will give us equals 0. On the left side, do you see how there's no like terms to combine that negative 10 with? You can't combine the negative 10 with anything, so it just gets stuck on the end. X squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Now this problem is just like the problems on the front. So I would like you on your own to do step 2, factor it, and then step 3, solve it. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add up to 3. There's only 2 ways to multiply to get 10, 1 times 10 or 2 times 5. So I'm thinking it's got to be 2 and 5, and it's probably 5 minus 2. So 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. 5 plus negative 2 is 3. So our factored form is x plus 5 times x minus 2. And don't forget that this time it's equals 0. Your next step, solving. X plus 5 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. What are our final answers? X equals negative 5. X equals positive 2. Do you see how the answers are the opposite of what was in the parentheses? You're trying to make the parentheses equal 0. So, what number minus 2 would give you 0? Positive 2. What number plus 5 would give you 0? Negative 5. So whatever it is in the parentheses, the opposite of that is going to be your answer. And if that doesn't make sense to you, that's fine. Think about how you would solve this equation. You'd subtract 5 on both sides to get x equals negative 5. You'd add 2 to both sides to get x equals 2. All right, number 6. We're going to skip 6 and 8. Take a look at number 7. Number 7 is also not in standard form. What should we do to make that negative 6 go to the other side of the equation? Add 6. We can't just move the negative 6 to the other side, but we can add 6 to both sides. That will give us x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Give this one a try on your own. Okay, we are trying to find two numbers that multiply to give us positive 6 and add up to negative 5. So a lot of you are thinking, well, it must be 1 times 6, right? Because 6 minus 1 is 5, so 1 minus 6 is negative 5. But what is 1 times negative 6? It's negative 6, but we need to multiply to get positive 6. So we either need both of our numbers to be positive or both of them to be negative. But negative 1 and negative 6 would be negative 7. So this isn't working. Is there another pair of numbers that multiplies to 6? 2 times 3. 2 plus 3 is positive 5. But if we made both of them negative, negative 2 and negative 3, multiply to positive 6 and add up to negative 5. So our factored form is x minus 2, x minus 3 equals 0. The shortcut is take the opposite. The answers are going to be 2 and 3. The longer way is do x minus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, solve both equations. Add 2 to both sides to get x equals 2. Add 3 to both sides to get x equals 3.